morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed we do. Many things to talk about this morning, including a new Wall Street Journal bombshell. Trump is officially in the Epstein files and was informed of such, so we will break all of that down. Also have a little bit of polling to dig through on all of those matters as well. Some interesting new Nelk Boys fallout too. We are learning, courtesy of them, that they were actually given a list of interview questions before their big Netanyahu interview. They're sort of still spiraling there, so interesting to dig into that as a media story. I think a significant one, actually. Some very dire news coming out of Israel. We now have a whistleblower coming forward from that so-called Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, talking about the unbelievable and horrifying force being used against Palestinians in the context of them trying to obtain aid. We also have another significant media story here involving Candace Owens, who is now being sued by the First Family of France. Candace did a long piece alleging that Brigitte Macron, the First Lady of France, is actually a man, was born a man, etc. And so they are suing her over those and other claims. We also have significant economic news. Home prices are continuing to go up. Home sales continuing to go down. In fact, a significant number of deals that were originally struck in the housing market fell apart last month. Record high number of those deals falling apart. So still really dire there. This comes also as Trump has announced a new quote unquote trade deal with Japan. So we'll dig into all of that. And we're going to have a guest on to break down if there is any there with this big Russiagate document drop. Obviously being used as an attempt to distract from Epstein. It's not working very well, but we did want to sift through and see if there's anything we should know out of
Obama-gate, as an original Obama-gator myself. It's been difficult. You know, we're having to go back and reread all the files, etc. Yes, we will allow Isaac. Isaac has done a fantastic job here from Tangle. He's actually read through everything, covered the stuff for years, and so we're going to outsource some of our knowledge over there. Thank you, Isaac, for taking this.
Didn't have it in us to go
I just
deep
personally
dive into this.
did not have this in me right now. All right, let's go. Oh, before we get to that, thank you to everybody who has been signing up for our premium membership, breakingpoints.com. If you would like, obviously we have all the benefits, but we are really supporting the show, and we have so many thousands and thousands of people every day who are joining us from all of these different issues in our coverage, and we're really happy to have you. If you can't sign up for a premium membership, no worries. Just do us a favor, hit the subscribe button on YouTube, or if you guys are listening to this on a podcast, just go ahead and send a link to one of your friends. It's the best possible thing that you could do for us to help spread the word. So with that, let's go ahead and start here with the Epstein story. This is, again, a very remarkable, very interesting leak coming to the Wall Street Journal. Let's put it up there on the screen. Quote, the Justice Department told Donald Trump in May that his name is among many in the Epstein files. There's a lot here, and I'm going to go through both the exact details of the story, but also the timeline, because the timeline matters a lot. Quote, when the Justice Department reviewed the Attorney General Pam Bondi called a truckload of documents, they discovered that Donald Trump's name appeared multiple times. In May, her and her deputy informed the president at a meeting in White House that his name was in the Epstein files. Quote, many other high-profile figures were also named, Trump was told. Being mentioned in the records is not a sign of wrongdoing. That's obviously correct, and that's something that we've talked about here for quite a long time. They said the officials said it was part of a routine briefing, covered a number of topics, and that Trump's appearance in the document was not even the focus. They told the president at the meeting that the files contained what officials felt was, quote, unverified hearsay about many people, including Trump, who had socialized with Epstein in the past, some of the officials said. One of the officials familiar said that they contain hundreds of other names. They also said that Trump told Trump the senior Justice Department officials didn't plan to release any more documents related to the investigation of the convicted sex offender because the material contained child pornography and victims' personal information. Trump said at the meeting he would defer to the Justice Department. Now, I want to sit on that for a second. So first and foremost is this. Number one is that obviously they told Trump his name was in the Epstein files. But the thing is that within the context, it makes it even more bizarre about Trump's decision not to release it. And really why this is a PR crisis of his own making now at this point. If he had released it with his name and hundreds of other names, there would be quite literally hundreds of stories to be able to go into this, right? And we could all diagnose and we could take a look at all of these different connections. By doing the cover-up and also claiming that you were going to release everything, you now make it so that the singular focus focus is on you, the president, for the person here, and actually make it more likely, in my mind and many people's minds, who are analysts here, are like, I don't know, man, maybe there is something a hell of a lot more, which is causing all these journalists, the Epstein birthday book, all of these old clips. We're going to play some here in a little bit, just to show people like some of the past scrutiny on Epstein and Trump's own relationship. This is all because of your own actions. Second is, Krystal, remember, this meeting was in May. We did not get the Epstein memo until almost a month later, ahead of the visit of the Israeli prime minister. So it seems they made the decision some 1 month earlier, basically around the time Kash Patel and others were going around on podcasts, kind of laying the groundwork for this. But what happened in that 1 month period? They said they weren't going to release anything, and then a month later, they come out and kind of say it. So the timing of it is very suspect. Remember, also in that interim month, they still were claiming that they were doing an investigation. So it basically makes the government look like a whole bunch of liars. It obviously makes Trump himself look dramatically more implicated in a cover-up. Probably makes him now, at this point, more intransigent to not release the files, which makes him look even more guilty. And so it's just a spiraling thing where, again, the simplest answer is one, which would probably be to his own benefit and to everybody else. Just release everything what's in there. Well, that's all you got to do, man. That's what you said you were going to do.
It depends what's in there.
But that's my point.
I mean,
now they're
assuming,
making it sketchy.
But maybe it's you're assuming that what's in there is just, oh, he was at his wedding and he sent him a birthday card or whatever. We don't know that. I mean, the way Trump is acting would indicate that there may be some much worse things. That is Occam's razor at this point, just based on the way that he's acting. But I mean, this story is probably the least surprising story that we've seen thus far.
Totally.
Because, and by the way, Elon apparently totally vindicated at this point. When Elon first said that Trump is in the Epstein files, what did we say? We said, of course Trump is in the Epstein files.
Yes.
They were very close friends for a lot of years. There is zero doubt that Trump is in the Epstein files. Question mark of what that means and what the implications are and what, all of that. But there was never any doubt. We know he flew on Epstein's plane at least 7 times. So it should be no surprise to anyone that he is, quote unquote, in the Epstein files, whatever, that really means. The question is, what are the specifics here, and why are you acting so incredibly bizarrely? That's really what it comes down to. And you're right that this has opened up a can of worms of people going back, because there was a lot of memory holing. There was a lot of denial on the right about just how close they were and how long the association lasted and all of those sorts of things. And so now, let's go ahead and play. This was Jeffrey Epstein when he was being deposed, got asked specifically about his relationship with Donald Trump and about whether or not they had ever been together in the presence of underage girls. Let's go ahead and take a listen to how he spun that.
Have you ever had a personal relationship with Donald Trump?
What do you mean by personal relationships?
Have you socialized with him?
Yes, sir.
Yes?
Yes, sir.
Have you ever socialized with Donald Trump in the presence of females under the age of 18?
Though I'd like to answer that question, at least today, I'm going to have to assert my 5th, 6th, and 14th Amendment rights, sir.
Tip there to the Midas Touch Network. They've been sleuthing all kinds of stuff
well,
over
listen,
there.
I mean, as you said, it's been out there. I don't deny it either. I mean, my assumption, perhaps naively, was, look, he's one of the most scrutinized public figures in the world at this point. Yeah, they went to each other's weddings, etc. I'm not saying I believe Trump on its face, but I was like, I think we kind of know. Yeah, they were obviously friends. They had all these, sketchy personal connections in certain ways. But at this point, considering both his rhetoric and the rhetoric of his administration, I was like, yeah, they'll probably release it. I mean, again, I could be totally wrong, and perhaps they are, but at this point, his behavior is such that it is really vindicating a lot of what you're saying, and that's why I actually think at this point, you really do have no choice but to release it, in my opinion. And also, just because of the way that the political winds continue to shift, both in Washington, remember, they literally had to shut down the House of Representatives to stop a vote, and even with that, I mean, I gotta give some of the Republicans some credit here, because, just yesterday was the House Oversight Committee. Multiple Republicans broke with the administration, they voted 8-2 to subpoena Ghislaine Maxwell, who will have some testimony before them. There are actually people who are there who are like, no, we're not stopping. This is going to happen. The reason they had to shut down the House was because there were enough Republicans who were willing to join the Democrats to say, no, screw it. Like, we're going forward.
Well, let's pause on Ghislaine for a second, because I know Ryan and Emily covered this, but the administration is talking to her. I mean, it's very, very, very possible. She's obviously working to try to get a deal, try to get a pardon.
Yes.
And I think that's very possibly the direction that we go in, where she effectively, in exchange for quote unquote exonerating Trump, is let out of her, has her prison sentence commuted or gets some sort of a deal. So, that's possible as well. And she has an appeal up to the Supreme Court right now that the government is taking the position of no, she needs to stay in prison. And that previous sweetheart deal that was struck with Epstein that said none of your co-conspirators could be charged either, that doesn't apply here for this various technical reasons. So I think that is possible as well. I mean, that's the thing, is like, regardless of whatever's in the files, the way they played this is so incredibly stupid. It's like the worst possible way you could do. Because these people are obviously not above line. We're about to show you Trump coming out and being like, oh, of course, she didn't tell me that I was in the Epstein files. So they could have released some subset. This ploy that they're doing now with let's release the grand jury testimony, which the courts are already, saying, no, we're not going to do that because there's no, we're basically not allowed to. They could have done that ploy previously to make it look like they're trying for transparency, but gosh darn it, the court system is just standing in their way or something, or just run out the clock, as you and I, it's fully expected them to do. And instead, you have made it look like you are so guilty, and maybe you are, and drawn so much attention and scrutiny that now everybody is going back through every picture, every video, every deposition, everything that has ever connected you to Jeffrey Epstein and to that world, and looking at it through a totally different lens at this point.
Right, and that's actually another thing which I think is important to align with the Ghislaine stuff. So Ghislaine is actually meeting with the Justice Department today, but the problem is, at this point, you've poisoned the well, right? For any substantive. I mean, at the end of this is part of what does, to me, again, point to a cover-up. Ghislaine Maxwell's attorneys and the government say, we never asked her if she ever had any third. What? You never asked her? In 2009, 2020, you never asked her. And now you're asking her at a time when she's directly asking for a pardon from Donald Trump. What, she's stupid? She can't look at the news and say, hey, I need to know what I said? If they had released the files and then come to Ghislaine. Also, by the way, at this point, I mean, Ghislaine Maxwell, just on the merits of what she's been convicted of, it's heinous. She should never be allowed a pardon or any of this. I'm talking about just her crimes with relation to Jeffrey Epstein. And so let's just leave it at that and say, all right, Ghislaine, maybe we can talk sentence reduction and all of this, but you have to be able to give us prosecutable, verifiable evidence. I think it's called like a Rule 35 or something like that, where a judge can take into consideration your cooperation with the government, but it has to like lead to actually something. Whereas now they've poisoned the well through their cover-up actions. And now if she does come out and say, oh, Trump, and he was never an intelligence asset or none of this, we're like, yeah, come on, man. I mean, this is just as sketchy as the non-prosecution agreement.
Right. You really couldn't believe anything she says at this point, because who are you leaving? I mean, she is not going to implicate Trump regardless of however much they're there.
Ghislaine's had years to talk.
Because she wants to deal with him.
Right. Ghislaine has had years. She even gave interviews from her jail cell, right? Like, it's not like she couldn't say something if she didn't want to.
Right.
She's keeping it all in. And look, she was at the Clinton wedding. She knew Donald Trump. She met Elon, her father, literally a Mossad asset. I could go on forever in terms of this woman's background. It's nuts, all right? I mean, Laureen Powell Jobs, like, she's got all kinds of stuff on all kinds of people, regardless of, by the way, whether they're implicated in sex trafficking or not, just her mere association, as we saw with Elon and Laureen Powell Jobs. It's a problem, no? It's a problem. And here we have with Donald Trump, again, like his just instinct to just, basically just come out and lie about a lot of the information here. He was asked repeatedly, but Pam Bondi ever tell you your name was in the Epstein files? And he said no. Let's take a listen.
On the DOJ and FBI
On what?
review,
On what subject?
Epstein. On Epstein, of the review of the files. Attorney General Pam Bondi.
A very quick briefing.
Did she tell you, what did she tell you about the review? And specifically, did she tell you at all that your name appeared in the files?
No, she's given us just a very quick briefing. And in terms of the credibility of the different things that they've seen, and I would say that, these files were made up by Comey, they were made up by Obama, they were made up by the Biden we went through years of that with the Russia hoax.
So, he literally said, no, she did not tell me that I was in the Epstein files. Another person who a lot of people have been looking to here is Mark Epstein, the brother. And he directly talked about some of the contradictions from the president's claims, saying he'd never been in his office. And he said, no, that's just absolutely not true. Let's take a listen to that.
And the White House, their response to us, Mark, they were categorical. They said, quote, the president was never in Epstein's office. Is that true?
That's just another blatant lie, because he was there. The people that worked for Jeffrey in his office, you can find them. They can testify that they saw Trump in Jeffrey's office on numerous occasions. So for him to say he wasn't there, all I can say is that's just another lie.
So you could say, he said, that's just another lie. I mean, look, Mark Epstein, I understand he's got his own personal agenda, and everybody should keep that in mind. But a lot of the stuff that Mark has said has actually turned out to be true. Remember, it's Mark also who has really driven the train of my brother did not commit suicide. By the way, if anybody wants, they should go and watch the interview that Ryan and Emily did yesterday with a former inmate at the MCC. I mean, this guy, the case that he lays out about the cameras and the way that everything works there, it's just, again, it's just not credible. I mean, I knew that, and I'd heard from other people, but to hear from such an intelligent and articulate person who was also literally an inmate in this facility, who had deep association knowledge of a lot of these cameras, and himself is a technology expert, you could take it you could take it with whatever grain of salt, I guess, that you want. I don't think he has a particular agenda that he's pushing. He's just like, listen, I was there. This is how it all worked, and I'm telling you, the government story doesn't make any sense whatsoever at all. That fits with the original OIG investigation, and now all this fake footage that's been put out by Pam Bondi. So, in the very least, with Mark Epstein, a lot of what he has said has turned out, at the very least, to be correct. Now, don't forget, he's also trying to whitewash some of his brother's crimes and his record, so let's put that out there. But broadly, I mean, what the Trump administration, and again, in all their actions, and this will get to the kind of the Russiagate, Obamagate stuff, and even the MLK files, is it's pretty clear they're desperate to release or to try and distract, at the very least, a lot of their base from what's happening. And yet, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, she delivered this long presentation yesterday about Obamagate and referring Obama to criminal prosecution, et cetera. As we said, we'll get to that at the latter end of the show, because we have a guest on who's going to break it all down for us. But she's asked here directly about Jeffrey Epstein and the intelligence connections. Let's take a listen.
I haven't seen any evidence or information that reflects that. If anything comes before me that changes that in any way, support the president's statement loud and clear. If any credible evidence comes forward, he wants the American people to see it.
I haven't seen it. If anything comes forward, I'll let you know, or we'll look into it. Or it's like, come on. Again, I mean, it's just so preposterous. And it just shows us that either they don't want to know or they do know and they're lying to us. I'm not really sure which one is worse.
Yeah.
I guess theoretically, plausible deniability, a tale as old as time here in Washington. But, you put all this stuff together. Also with the Wall Street Journal, I should note, by the way, multiple other outlets reported it. And the White House is not even really denying the conversation took place. Let's make that clear as well. They're like, yeah, we know. And their defense is, they knew each other at a certain time. They had a falling out, and that's to the extent. Okay, fine. I mean, even according to the Journal, they're like, hey, man, it's not like you're implicated in any wrongdoing here. Your name is in here, along with hundreds of other people. It's like, okay, fine, then release it. But clearly, Trump is either afraid as that even those breadcrumbs as to what it will all lead to, that's very possible. The intelligence angle, by the way, I still think is a very, very, very plausible one beyond his own personal motivations. And if you just put the totality of the way that all of the original statements from the Trump administration now align with where we are today, it just tells you nothing but cover up. I mean, Pam Bondi, thousands of hours of footage, all of these files, hundreds of FBI agents, etc. Remember, there was a statement from Dick Durbin, the senator from Illinois. I think he's on the Judiciary Committee in the Senate, and he put out a statement saying, hey, we were told by FBI agents to flag when Donald Trump's name was in the files. But now it kind of makes sense, right? Because this is part of probably why they were coming to Trump, just like, hey, just so you know, your name is in here. But that is all it's such a massive conflict of interest. And for people, the Streisand effect of this story now is unbelievable. It's one of the top stories in the country. I'm not joking. If you look at Google traffic, and especially if you look at people who are, quote, apolitical or, kind of online, a lot of them probably voted for Trump. They may not necessarily consider themselves MAGA. They're really starting to break. For, if you want evidence, the QAnon shaman has now broken with Donald Trump and said, fuck this piece of shit. Just saying, all right? Listen, you could say whether or not, he stormed the Capitol, on behalf of Donald Trump. I think it's a constituency of some sort for these types of people. He was a hero, if you'll recall. So I'm just saying, all these types of people, this is a very important story. It's not going away.
Well, and I think it's really the first time I can think of where all of Trump's go-to tactics are just really not working.
Yeah.
He's normally so good at being able to change the conversation and get us chasing after something else than having to deal with and obviously he's trying. I mean, I've seen the list of like all the attempted distractions, the cane sugar and the Coke and the Rosie O'Donnell should be denaturalized and lose their citizenship. And, now we've got the Obamagate stuff, the MLK files and whatever. And it's like, nope, people are still focused on this. And it's so obvious, too, what he's trying to do, that not to say that the right isn't interested in the Russiagate stuff and whatever, we're going to cover it in the show, but it is not throwing people off of this particular case, especially as the story just continues to drip, continues to develop. And then the other thing is, and you and I were talking about this a little bit before we started the show, like, I don't think Rupert Murdoch is the type of media figure who's just going to be terrified and run away from the case because of the threat of a lawsuit. Trump has he's already played that card. He said he threatened them before they published their birthday card scoop. He threatened them, said, this is absolutely fake. I will sue you. I will ruin you, etc. They went forward with it anyway. And so he's already played that card with them. And then that's the other thing that's significant about this coming out in the Wall Street Journal after that initial scoop is it's sort of, a message to him too of like, okay, well, we're going to keep going.
Let's play.
Like, you're not slowing us down. Yeah, let's play. Let's go. I'm not afraid. We're moving in this direction. And Murdoch obviously, has a sprawling media empire, including Fox News, including Wall Street Journal, including the New York Post, all of which are incredibly important and influential. And I think he also is someone who does not see Trump as being bigger than him.
Look, Murdoch has always hated Trump, all right? In a secret way, like, they despise him. It is a alliance of convenience at the very best. Trump both fears and respects Rupert Murdoch, and vice versa, right? But the thing is, people need to understand about Murdoch is, and I was reading from Dylan Byers, he works at Pug, he's one of the best, like, true inside the room media journalists, and he pointed this out. If you look at the previous settlements, ABC settles with Donald Trump. Why? They were gonna win. There's no question that they were gonna win. The George Stephanopoulos case. Why do they settle? Because ABC is owned by Disney. Bob Iger is like, look, 16 million and I get to keep my theme park permits, which print hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Easy trade, right? Even because they don't care about journalism, they care about business. CBS, owned by Paramount, which needs to merge with Skydance, which needs the FTC and the FCC to approve their merger. 16 million is nothing for a multi-billion-dollar deal. Sherry Redstone has been trying to offload this shit for years. She's like, I will pay anything to get rid of this. Oh, and by the way, she's super pro-Israel. So at the same time, she's like, I don't care, whatever. Let's make a deal. Murdoch, people forget this. He sold the bulk of the Fox empire, the Fox networks and all the other stuff, years ago, and he sold it to Disney. He doesn't need the regulators nearly as much. He still owns Fox, he still owns News Corp. That's basically it. A lot of his personal empire has been offloaded. He's sitting on a shitload of cash, as well as his foreign media empire. He doesn't need the same regulatory approval. Now, listen, the FCC can make life miserable for anybody, so I'm not saying it's theoretically possible. But also what Dylan said, if you note inside the lawsuit that Trump filed, it specifically doesn't go after Fox News. It actually doesn't touch Fox News. Very carefully, it was crafted to make sure it only goes after Murdoch, the two journalists, and others. Another thing is that Trump may actually have filed the lawsuit in such a way that it will require immediately dismissal, because Florida law basically requires that you have to wait like 5 days or something after a story to be published to actually publish to file suit. They did it obviously before the 5 days was up. They may have actually crafted the lawsuit in a way where it will require dismissal and then both sides can claim victory. So it may be possible that they knew it was a fake lawsuit from the very beginning. It was all posturing. And also, let's think about the implication here. Trump would literally have to sit as president of the United States for a deposition for hours about
his
Epstein.
relationship with Jeffrey
Sworn
Epstein.
deposition. You really want to go through with that? And then Murdoch.
There's 0% chance he
It's
would
not
go through
happening.
with that.
It's
0%
not happening.
chance.
Yeah, exactly. Like the risk for Trump is exponential. The risk for Murdoch is not that high. He's sitting on 40 or 50 billion dollars and he's 94 years old. And by the way, he loves to fight. As you can look at all of his past, I really recommend people go and look at some of the past legal broiling this guy has gotten himself into here in the UK and in Australia. This is what animates them, you know? And so I put that all together. I'm not saying Murdoch may not settle. He may do it just to basically bribe Trump. Maybe Trump will say no more Trump administration officials on Fox News, but I don't think so. They need each other. It's a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm betting on Rupert on this one. I really am.
Well, like I said, I think the fact that they published this scoop so soon after the original one, it really does send a message of like, we don't care. Go ahead. We don't buy that you and your fake threats that this is any sort of a real risk for us, and we're proceeding. There are a couple other details that are worth pulling out in this Wall Street Journal piece that were interesting as well. First of all, they had some details about Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi fighting. So let me read this section. They say that Bongino has told colleagues his association with the administration's decision to keep the files private has eroded his credibility among the base of support that fueled his rise as a successful podcaster and media personality on the right. So he's concerned that this is all damaging his brand as a podcaster, which is, important thing for high-level FBI official to be worried about. Bongino did not respond to a request for comments. They also have these details of this fight. So on July 9th, they say after ABC News reached out to the White House about Bondi's briefing to the president, Bongino and Bondi clashed in a meeting in which Bondi alleged Bongino was secretly providing information to the media to damage her reputation. Bongino, in turn, exploded about Bondi, his face red, and called her a liar, a senior administration official said. They also have some details in here about FBI Director Kash Patel, who apparently is privately going around and spreading the information, gossiping about the fact that Trump's name is in the files. So this is becoming common knowledge, in D.C. And so no surprise that Elon, I think Elon
that's
knew.
Almost certainly the source of where Elon came from. And it makes sense because FBI director was the one who gave the order to the agents to all. Remember, they said hundreds of agents and said, hey, guys, flag anything there that's in Donald Trump. So, yeah, look, nobody can deny this. The actions of the administration are so unbelievably sketchy now at this point that, I don't even know how they dig themselves out of it. Again, other than a full release. But even at that point, there's just going to be so much scrutiny, so much requirement for transparency to say, what the hell are you guys hiding? You have nobody to blame but yourselves. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.